Building a home in America. It used to be the dream, didn't it? A symbol of stability, of making it? But lately that dream feels more like a mirage, shimmering just out of reach. Why? Because building, just the act of putting up walls and a roof, now costs an absolute fortune. We're not talking about a little price bump here. We're talking about figures that make your eyes water and your bank account weep. People across the country, from bustling cities to quiet suburbs, are looking at these numbers and asking one simple, desperate question. What on earth happened to affordable housing? It's not just one thing, you see, it's a brutal combination. Think of it like a really bad band where every instrument is playing too loud and out of tune. Lumber, the very bones of a house, has seen its price go on a wild roller coaster, mostly up. Labor, the skilled hands needed to put it all together, is scarce and expensive. And land? Oh, land is a whole other saga, especially anywhere near places people actually want to live. Each of these essential components has become a major financial hurdle, piling on the cost before a single nail is even hammered. The fallout from this affordability crisis is hitting hard, and it's hitting everyone. Imagine being a young family, saving diligently, only to find that the goalposts for homeownership have been moved miles down the field, almost overnight. They are the ones staring at sky-high prices, their hopes dwindling with each new market report. And it's not just buyers. Developers, the people actually building these homes, are in a bind too. They're constantly asking themselves, how can we possibly build a basic house that someone can actually afford when everything costs this much? The grim reality is that even a starter home is fast becoming a luxury item. So, what's the plan here? We're going to dissect this crisis piece by painful piece. This isn't just a surface-level glance. We are diving deep into the nuts and bolts of why constructing a home in the United States has become such an expensive ordeal. We need to understand the hidden forces, the complex web of factors that are pushing these costs into the stratosphere. Why does even a simple no-frills house now demand such a premium? This exploration is more than an economic exercise. It's about understanding the shifting landscape of the American dream and what it means for the future of owning a place to call home. Let's call this what it is. U.S. housing costs, the silent crisis. It might not scream from the headlines every single day, but its impact is profound, reshaping communities and individual lives in quiet yet devastating ways. Welcome to this in-depth analysis, where we unpack the complex issues that define our modern economic and urban landscapes. Today, our focus is squarely on the cost of housing, the very foundation upon which so many hopes and dreams are built. And right now, that foundation is showing some serious cracks, threatening to crumble under the immense pressure of escalating expenses. We are about to delve into the true cost of building a home, looking at the situation as it stands and how it's projected for the near future, say into 2025. And here's a little preview. The picture isn't encouraging. The soaring costs we're witnessing are not some temporary anomaly, a quick blip that will soon correct itself. No, this is a persistent, deeply entrenched trend. Understanding the myriad reasons why these expenses are not expected to decrease anytime soon is absolutely critical if we are to find any viable solutions. The problem is multifaceted, woven into the very fabric of our economy and construction industry. Consider this staggering fact. In 2024, the average cost to construct a single-family home in the United States soared to over $300,000. And remember, that figure doesn't even include the price of the land it's built on. Let that number sink in for a moment. Over $300,000 just for the structure. This represents a jaw-dropping increase of nearly 40% from just a few short years ago. What's igniting this financial inferno? It's a confluence of factors, a perfect storm where rising material prices, labor shortages, stringent regulations, and broad economic shocks all hit the housing industry simultaneously. The consequences of this crisis are far-reaching and touch almost every segment of society. This isn't an issue confined to the balance sheets of construction companies. It's a societal problem with tangible impacts on ordinary people. For instance, builders are finding it increasingly difficult, if not impossible, to construct entry-level homes that are profitable, effectively shutting out a huge portion of the market. This, in turn, means that first-time buyers are often priced out before they even begin their search. Meanwhile, renters face an intensely competitive market with a dwindling supply of affordable units. The dream of owning a first home is, for many, becoming an unattainable fantasy. This is the stark reality we must confront. That $300,000 figure for building a new home, it's not just a statistic, it's a new benchmark of just how unaffordable things have become. Think about it, that's before you even buy the land. For countless Americans, that number isn't just daunting, it's a full-blown barrier, a locked gate on the dream of ownership. We're talking about a mountain of potential debt, a sum so large it pushes the dream far out of reach. This isn't mere sticker shock, it's a fundamental crisis unfolding. And this isn't some slow, gradual climb we've witnessed. No, we're talking about a 40% surge in just a handful of years. That's an explosive jump in costs, a real shock to the system. Imagine your grocery bill jumping that high, that fast. This rapid escalation makes it nearly impossible for wages to keep up. Forget about savings catching pace, it's just not happening. People are working hard, playing by the rules, yet falling further behind. The goalposts haven't just moved, they've been launched into orbit. This isn't a problem confined to a few overpriced coastal cities. This is a story playing out across the entire nation. From sprawling metropolises to once affordable smaller towns, the dream of building and owning a new home is dimming everywhere. Sure, there are regional variations, hotspots that are even worse, but the overall trend, it's undeniably, universally upward. The wave of high construction costs washes over all states. No corner of the country seems to be immune to this painful reality. And here's the kicker, the part that really makes your head spin. That $300,000 plus figure, that's just for the structure itself. We're talking about the lumber, the concrete, the drywall, the roof. The actual cost of putting the building together piece by piece, the plot of land it sits on, that's a whole separate financial battle. Often it's another exorbitant expense, another wallet-emptying chapter. So buyers are hit with a devastating 1-2 punch of costs. It's a brutal combination that makes new homes a distant dream. So, who bears the brunt of these runaway construction costs? First in line, the aspiring first-time homebuyer. They meticulously save, plan, and dream of their own place, only to watch as house prices soar far beyond their grasp. Their hard-earned down payment seems to shrink in value overnight. The entry point to homeownership, once a manageable step, now feels like a sheer cliff. Hope quickly sours into a deep, gnawing frustration. The American dream of a starter home is becoming a statistical anomaly. But it's not just prospective buyers feeling the squeeze. Renters are caught in this housing cost vortex too. When fewer new homes are built, especially affordable ones, rental markets tighten. This scarcity gives landlords the upper hand, leading to rent hikes. So rents climb higher and higher, consuming more of people's paychecks. Finding an affordable apartment transforms into an exhausting, often fruitless quest. Many are forced into less desirable housing or to pay unsustainable portions of their income. The stability of a secure, affordable rental becomes increasingly elusive. You might think builders are cashing in amidst this crisis, but they're navigating their own treacherous financial landscape. Skyrocketing material costs and persistent labor shortages eat into their margins. Building a basic, affordable home, the numbers often just don't add up profitably. So what happens? They pivot to constructing luxury homes. High-end properties offer a better chance to turn a profit in this environment. This means fewer starter homes get built, further starving the market. It's a vicious cycle driven by cold, hard economic realities. Ultimately, this crisis of construction costs exacerbates broader societal issues. Homeownership has long been a primary pathway to building generational wealth. When that path is blocked for a significant portion of the population, inequality deepens. The wealth gap between homeowners and non-homeowners widens further. This has profound implications for community stability and diversity. It affects where people can live, their access to opportunities, and their social mobility. This isn't just an economic issue, it's a challenge to the fabric of society. A challenge that demands serious attention and comprehensive solutions. Section 3. The anatomy of the price tag, a preview of the pain. So, what are the main culprits behind this construction cost catastrophe? Let's peel back the layers. First up, the raw materials. Think lumber, steel, concrete, the absolute essentials for any build. Their prices have been on a gut-wrenching roller coaster in recent years. Global supply chains, disrupted by the pandemic and other shocks, are still untangling. This means getting your hands on basic building blocks is tougher, and you guessed it, significantly more expensive than it used to be. Builders are paying premiums for items once considered standard and affordable. Next on the list of offenders, the skilled labor shortage. Finding enough qualified workers is a massive, ongoing headache. We're talking about plumbers, electricians, carpenters, and framers, the skilled tradespeople who actually put the houses together. Many experienced workers left the industry and never returned, and younger generations aren't exactly flocking to these crucial jobs. This scarcity directly translates into higher labor costs for builders. It also means construction projects take longer to complete, adding further expense. Then there's the very ground the house stands on, land. In most growing cities and desirable suburban areas, land is like gold dust. It's incredibly scarce and as a result, astronomically expensive. Strict zoning laws often pour fuel on this fire. Many areas are zoned exclusively for single-family homes, limiting density. This artificially restricts the supply of land available for more diverse housing types. And let's not forget NIMBYism, not in my backyard opposition. Local resistance can stall or kill new developments, further driving up land costs. And finally, we have a whole cocktail of other contributing factors, a complex web of regulations, permits, and bureaucratic hurdles. These can add significant delays and costs before construction even begins. Then, layer on the financial side, rising interest rates make borrowing more expensive for builders. Inflationary pressures push up the cost of everything, from fuel to insurance. It's not one single issue, but a convergence of many interconnected problems. Each strand in this tangled web adds to that final breathtaking price tag. Section 1. The lingering shock when material costs went wild. Remember 2021, the great lumber price explosion? It was all over the news. Prices shot up so fast, everyone thought, this will calm down. Well, spoiler alert, just the opening act. The baseline cost for materials remains high. This isn't a blip, it's sustained pressure. Think about the scale of it, not just a slight increase. For many core components, prices are still significantly elevated. We're talking bare bones stuff. Wood for framing, concrete, steel, these aren't optional extras. They are the non-negotiables of building. This sustained price inflation ripples out. Builders can't absorb all these costs. They need to stay in business. So higher prices get passed on to developers, then to home buyers, or fewer affordable homes get built. It's a direct hit to affordability. A tough spot for the housing sector. The psychological impact is also huge. Unpredictability is a killer for plans. Material prices can swing wildly. Budgeting becomes a total nightmare. Contractors struggle to give accurate quotes. Developers become much more cautious, especially for affordable housing projects. This uncertainty chills new investment. It slows down necessary construction. Section 2. The price tag on your walls. Key materials under the microscope. Let's get specific with materials. Take lumber, the poster child. Its price went to the moon. It's not at its absolute peak, but it's still way up. That simple sheet of plywood, once $20, now maybe $50. Multiply that by hundreds. The numbers get scary, fast. It's not just wood products. Steel is playing hard to get, crucial for structural parts, and rebar in foundations. Think about strong beams. Global demand and energy costs all keep steel prices elevated. This impacts most building projects. Then there's trusty concrete, the foundation of most homes. You think rocks, sand, cement, but it's gotten expensive. The cost of cement climbed. Energy for mixing is up, demand is high, supply tight, foundations just cost more now. Another expense before walls. Don't forget the inside stuff. Drywall, for instance, costs more. Gypsum, its main ingredient, tight. Manufacturing costs are up. Even basic insulation sees jumps. Crucial for home energy use. It's death by 1,000 cuts. Each item adds a bit. The total effect is staggering. So what's fueling this madness? A big part global supply chains, once efficient, now very fragile, still healing from pandemic shocks, port congestions, container shortages, unpredictable lockdowns abroad, all created massive bottlenecks. Getting materials is slower, and a heck of a lot costlier. Then throw in tariffs and tricky trade policies. Taxes on imported goods like certain lumber or steel directly inflate material costs. The aim might be protection, but builders pay more now. It adds to price volatility. Shipping delays are a huge cost. Materials late, schedules wrecked, crews might be idle, equipment sits unused, projects drag on longer. Time is big money here. These delays aren't just annoying, they add significant indirect costs. A premium home buyer's shoulder. Don't overlook raw material shortages. Sometimes it's the basic ingredients. Specific chemicals for plastics, or even sand and gravel. Scarcity drives up prices from the very start. Global demand, instability, climate, all can impact resource supply. It's a complex global dance, and builders pay the expensive tune. It's not just the price of 2x4s or concrete keeping homes unbuilt. There's a human element, a massive hole in the workforce. We're talking about a shortage of hundreds of thousands of skilled construction workers. That's not a minor gap, it's a gaping chasm in the industry's ability to deliver. Imagine trying to bake a cake, but you're missing a third of the ingredients. It just doesn't work. Builders across the nation are facing this reality daily. They have the projects, they might even have the materials, but finding the skilled hands, the electricians, the plumbers, the masons, has become an overwhelming challenge, slowing everything down. So, where did all these skilled workers vanish to? A big piece of the puzzle dates back to the Great Recession in 2008. When the housing market crashed, construction projects dried up almost overnight. Hundreds of thousands of workers lost their jobs. These weren't just numbers, they were people with families to feed and mortgages to pay. Many of them couldn't afford to wait for the industry to recover. They retrained, found new careers in different sectors, manufacturing, logistics, healthcare, and they built new lives. And frankly, many of them never looked back at construction, leaving a permanent void. Compounding this issue is a simple, unavoidable fact. The existing workforce is aging. A significant number of the most experienced tradespeople, the ones who really know their craft, are baby boomers. They're now reaching retirement age, ready to hang up their hard hats and enjoy a well-deserved rest. This isn't just a trickle, it's a steady stream of expertise walking out the door. The problem is, there isn't an equally robust pipeline of younger workers stepping up to replace them, to learn those skills, and to carry the industry forward. This demographic shift is creating an experience vacuum that's incredibly difficult to fill quickly. This skilled labor shortage isn't some sudden phenomenon that caught everyone by surprise. Industry analysts and construction leaders have been sounding the alarm bells for years, warning about the shrinking talent pool. It was like a slow tire leak, gradually deflating the industry's capacity. Then events like the pandemic acted as an accelerant, making a chronic problem acute. The cumulative impact of past recessions, demographic shifts, and perhaps a societal undervaluing of trade professions has now culminated in this critical shortage. Construction sites are parched for skilled labor, and this drought directly impacts the cost and availability of new homes for everyone. You don't need an economics PhD to understand what happens next. When demand for something is sky high and the supply is critically low, the price goes up. In the construction world, that something is skilled labor. Electricians, plumbers, carpenters, HVAC technicians, welders. These professionals are in incredibly high demand right now. As a result, their wages have significantly increased. Builders are in a tough spot. They have to pay premium rates to attract and retain the skilled workers they desperately need to complete projects. This isn't a sign of greed from the workers, it's simple market dynamics at play, reflecting their valuable and scarce skills. These higher labor costs aren't just an abstract number on a builder's spreadsheet. They become a very real, very substantial component of the total cost of building a new home. Every dollar extra paid in wages has to be accounted for. Builders, like any business, need to cover their expenses to stay afloat, so those increased labor expenses are inevitably passed down the line, contributing directly to the higher price tags that home buyers see. Essentially, part of the reason new homes are so expensive is because the skilled labor required to build them well now costs significantly more than it did just a few years ago. But the impact of the labor shortage isn't just measured in dollars and cents, it's also measured in time. A scarcity of skilled workers means that construction projects inevitably take longer to complete. What might have been a 4-month build a decade ago can now easily stretch to 7, 8, or even more months. Why the delay? Builders might have to wait weeks, sometimes months, for a specific trade crew, like plumbers or drywall installers, to become available. A holdup in one critical phase creates a cascade of delays down the entire project timeline, pushing back completion dates significantly. This stretched timeline creates a frantic environment. Builders find themselves in fierce competition for the limited pool of available skilled crews. They're often poaching workers from other job sites, offering signing bonuses, or paying overtime rates just to keep their own projects from grinding to a complete halt. This constant scramble for labor creates immense scheduling, uncertainty, and inefficiency. And all these factors, the bidding wars for workers, the project delays, the extended financing periods for builders, add further layers of cost onto the final price of a new home, making the dream of ownership even more elusive for many. A crucial question we have to ask is, why aren't more young people choosing careers in the skilled trades? For several decades, there has been an overwhelming societal emphasis on obtaining a 4-year college degree as the primary path to success. High schools have often prioritized academic tracks over vocational and technical education. The subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, message has been that working with your hands in a trade is somehow less prestigious or less valuable than a white-collar office job. This perception, however, out of touch with the reality of high earnings and demand in trades, has unfortunately steered many young individuals away from these essential and rewarding careers. Consider the guidance many students receive. Vocational training programs in high schools, which once offered a direct pathway into trades like carpentry, welding, or electrical work, have been significantly downsized or even entirely eliminated in many districts across the country. Shop classes, once a staple of the American educational experience, became rare. This has meant fewer opportunities for young people to get hands-on exposure to these skills, to discover a potential aptitude or even a passion for building and creating. We've systematically de-emphasized the very professions that are now in such critical shortage, the ones we rely on to build our homes and infrastructure. The direct outcome of this generational shift is a workforce that is aging out, with an insufficient number of younger people entering the trades to replace them. This skills gap is widening each year. There's often a profound lack of awareness among young people and their parents about the genuine career opportunities and earning potential available in the skilled trades. Many of these professions offer excellent salaries, comprehensive benefits, and clear pathways to entrepreneurship, often without the burden of massive student loan debt that can accompany a traditional 4-year degree. But this compelling narrative isn't being effectively communicated. So here's the unavoidable stark reality we face. If there's no labor, or critically insufficient labor, projects get delayed. Those delays inevitably drive up costs. Higher costs, combined with a reduced capacity to build due to fewer skilled hands, mean fewer houses are constructed each year. It's a damaging cycle that directly impacts housing affordability and availability. Unless we can successfully address this skilled labor crisis by attracting, training, and retaining a new generation of builders, the shortage of homes will continue to worsen. And for too many Americans, the hope of owning an affordable home will drift further out of reach. Alright, let's talk about the very ground beneath our feet, land. It seems so basic, right? Just dirt and space. But in the world of housing, land is everything. It's the canvas upon which homes are built. And here's the hard truth. In many places where people actually want to live, developable land is becoming incredibly scarce. It's like a game of musical chairs, but with plots of land, and the music is stopping fast. This isn't just about empty fields, it's about the right kind of land, in the right locations, and there's simply not enough of it to go around, pushing prices skyward. Think about our expanding cities and bustling suburbs. For decades, development has sprawled outwards, consuming vast tracts of easily accessible land. The low-hanging fruit, the flat, easy-to-build-on parcels near existing infrastructure, well, much of that has already been claimed. What's often left is either geographically challenging, think steep slopes or wetlands, or it's located so far from jobs, schools, and amenities that it becomes less desirable and more costly to develop. We've pushed the boundaries, and now we're hitting the limits of convenient, affordable expansion in many key regions. This scarcity has profound consequences for anyone trying to build. Developers are forced to look further and further afield, which means new, significant costs for extending infrastructure like roads, water lines, and sewers. These costs naturally get baked into the price of new homes. Alternatively, builders must engage in fierce competition for the few remaining infill plots within established areas, driving up the price of that land to astronomical levels. It's a classic supply and demand scenario, where the demand for well-located land massively outstrips the available supply, creating a pressure cooker for prices. And here's a fundamental point that often gets overlooked: they're not making any more land. Especially not in the prime spots everyone covets, near vibrant city centers, good school districts, or convenient transportation hubs. This finite nature of desirable land means its inherent value is constantly on the rise as populations grow and demand increases. So before a single blueprint is unrolled, before a single worker arrives on site, the scarcity of the ground itself is already setting the stage for an expensive project. This is a foundational challenge, quite literally, to building affordable homes. Now, it's not just about the physical availability of land. There's another major player in this game, an invisible force that dictates what can be built, where, and how densely. I'm talking about zoning laws. These are the local rule books, the detailed codes that municipalities use to control land use. And let me tell you, these rules often act like invisible walls, artificially restricting the supply of land available for certain types of housing, particularly the denser, more affordable options that so many people need. These regulations, often established decades ago, are profoundly shaping today's housing crisis. One of the most significant culprits here is what's known as single-family zoning. This means that vast swaths of land, often in desirable neighborhoods, are legally restricted to allow only one type of structure, a detached single-family house, frequently on a relatively large plot of land. Think about that. In areas with high demand for housing, these rules effectively outlaw the construction of duplexes, triplexes, townhouses, or modest apartment buildings that could house more people on the same amount of land. It's like saying you can only grow one specific low-yield crop on your most fertile fields. The impact of such restrictive zoning is enormous. It essentially locks up land, preventing it from being used to its full potential to meet housing needs. Even if a developer owns a perfectly good piece of land in a neighborhood zoned for single-family homes, they are legally barred from building, say, a small complex of 4 townhouses. Instead, they can only build one, often expensive house. This dramatically limits the number of new housing units that can be created, especially in established areas close to jobs and amenities, directly fueling the scarcity problem we've been discussing. So while we talk about physical land scarcity, it's crucial to understand this layer of regulatory scarcity imposed by zoning. These rules, often defended fiercely by existing residents under the banner of preserving neighborhood character, effectively create an artificial shortage of buildable land for multi-unit housing. They drive up the per-unit cost of land because if you can only build one home on an expensive plot, that home has to absorb the entire land cost. This means zoning isn't just a bureaucratic detail, it's a primary driver of high housing costs and a major impediment to building more affordable communities. Section 3. The price of a plot. Paying a premium before pouring concrete. The direct, unavoidable consequence of land scarcity, both physical and regulatory, is that land prices have absolutely exploded. We're not talking about small, incremental increases here. In and around major metropolitan areas, the places with the most job opportunities and the highest demand for living, the cost of a buildable lot has soared to breathtaking heights. It's become one of the single largest components in the total cost of a new home. For many builders, securing an affordable plot of land is the first, and often the most insurmountable hurdle to overcome before any construction can even be contemplated. This initial, massive outlay for the land itself immediately inflates the entire project budget. If a developer has to pay a premium price just to acquire the dirt, that cost has to be recouped somehow. And guess how that happens? It's passed on to the home buyer in the final sale price. This is particularly problematic for efforts to build more affordable entry-level housing. When land costs are through the roof, it becomes economically unfeasible to construct modest homes because the numbers simply don't pencil out. The high price of the land often dictates that only luxury, high-margin homes can be profitably built, but the cost of land isn't just the purchase price. Oh no, it gets more complicated. Developers often face a barrage of additional expenses tied directly to the land before they can even think about laying a foundation. These include substantial impact fees levied by municipalities, ostensibly to cover the costs of new infrastructure like schools and parks needed to support new residents. Then there are the lengthy, complex, and often unpredictable permitting and entitlement processes. Navigating this bureaucratic maze can take months, sometimes years, all while the developer is incurring carrying costs on the land. And let's not forget the power of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. Opposition from existing residents can throw major wrenches into development plans, leading to costly delays, forced redesigns, or even the outright denial of permits. These fights further restrict the supply of developable land and add uncertainty and expense for builders. The cumulative effect of all these factors, high purchase prices, hefty fees, protracted approval timelines, and community resistance, means that an enormous chunk of a new home's cost is sunk into the land before a single nail is hammered. It's a premium paid just for the privilege of building. Section 1. The Permit Gauntlet, a slow crawl to construction. Regulations aren't inherently evil. Many are in place for good reasons, for public safety, for environmental protection. We all want homes that are safe to live in and communities that are sustainable. Good goals, right? But the journey through America's construction approval process, it's often less of a clear, well-paved road and more of a treacherous, winding obstacle course. It's a slow, complex, and frequently maddening experience for those trying to build. This isn't just a source of frustration for builders, it's incredibly expensive. And those added expenses, they don't just magically disappear into thin air. They land squarely on the final price tag of new homes, making everything significantly more costly. So, the dream of building, the dream of owning gets tangled in miles of red tape. Let's talk about permits. You can't just decide one sunny morning to build a house and immediately start digging holes for the foundation. Oh no, not in this landscape. You need official permission. And not just one piece of permission, but often lots of it, from a multitude of different city, county, and sometimes even state-level departments. And acquiring these essential permits? It's rarely a quick email exchange or a simple over-the-counter transaction. We're talking about bureaucratic wait times that can stretch for months upon months. In some particularly challenging jurisdictions, these delays can even extend into years. Yes, you heard that right. Years before a builder can officially break ground. Imagine meticulously planning a project, lining up your materials, arranging your labor force, and then you wait, and you wait, and then you wait some more, caught in limbo. This profound uncertainty is a project killer. These aren't just inconvenient holdups or minor administrative delays, they have very real, very substantial financial consequences that ripple through the entire project. While developers are patiently, or impatiently, waiting for those crucial permits to be issued, they're often still carrying significant costs for the land they intend to build on. Property taxes don't magically pause. Loan interest on financing for the land or project continues to accrue day by day. These are known in the industry as holding costs, and they can pile up incredibly fast, eating into any potential profit margin. Furthermore, the economic landscape isn't static. Material prices can fluctuate wildly, and the availability of skilled labor can change. A delay of 6 months or a year can mean facing a completely different and much higher cost environment. Projects that were once viable can suddenly become economically unfeasible. Some developers, facing seemingly endless bureaucratic hurdles and steadily mounting costs, simply decide to give up. Or more commonly, they never even attempt to start projects in notoriously difficult areas, scared off by the sheer complexity and financial risk involved. So what does this agonizingly slow and often unpredictable permit process ultimately mean for you, the potential homebuyer or the struggling renter? It directly translates to fewer new homes being built each year than are desperately needed. And the homes that do manage to navigate the gauntlet and get built end up costing more, considerably more. Builders have no choice but to factor in all those accumulated holding costs, all that pervasive uncertainty, and all that extra administrative overhead into the final sale price of each unit. The countless months spent meticulously navigating intricate paperwork, attending numerous meetings, and responding to endless queries translate directly into thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars being added to the cost of each new home. It's effectively a hidden tax, a bureaucracy surcharge, making the already scarce commodity of affordable housing an even rarer species in today's market. The red tape itself becomes a formidable barrier to entry for both builders and buyers. Section 2. Code Confusion and Review, Roulette, Navigating the Regulatory Maze. Beyond the initial hurdle of securing permits, builders must then navigate the incredibly wild and often bewildering world of building codes. These are the detailed sets of rules and standards that dictate precisely how a structure must be built, covering everything from structural integrity and fire safety to electrical wiring and plumbing systems. They also include mandates for material specifications and ever-evolving energy efficiency requirements. All of this sounds perfectly sensible, right? And these codes are, in principle, essential for ensuring safe, durable, and energy-efficient housing. But here's the significant kicker. These crucial codes aren't uniform. They are not even close to being consistent. They can vary wildly from one state to another. Then within a single state, they can differ from county to county. And believe it or not, they can even change from one city or town to the next within the same county. Imagine designing a home that's perfectly legal and compliant in one municipality, only to find it needs major, costly modifications to be built just a few miles down the road. This bewildering patchwork of differing regulations creates incredible complexity and expense, particularly for builders who operate across multiple jurisdictions. Then come the infamous design reviews. This is the stage where local planning boards, architectural review committees, or historic preservation commissions meticulously scrutinize the aesthetic aspects of a proposed construction project. Again, the underlying intention might be perfectly good, aiming to preserve the existing character of a neighborhood, ensure a certain level of design quality, or protect historic resources. However, these review processes can be incredibly subjective and unpredictable. What one board member considers an attractive design feature, another might deem completely unacceptable. This subjectivity can lead to an endless and frustrating cycle of back and forth with repeated requests for minor, then sometimes major revisions to the plans. Could you move that window a few feet to the left? We think the roofline should be altered. Perhaps you could use a different shade of brick or siding material. Each seemingly small change means redrawing detailed architectural plans, reassessing material costs, and inevitably, more delays in the project timeline. It's like trying to hit a constantly moving target while blindfolded, adding significant time, stress, and expense to an already challenging process. And let's not forget the critical role of environmental regulations in the development process. These regulations are absolutely crucial for the health of our planet and communities. We all desire and deserve clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and protected natural ecosystems for wildlife and future generations. Nobody is seriously arguing against the fundamental need for robust environmental safeguards. However, the process of complying with these often complex and multi-layered regulations adds significant layers of complexity, time, and cost to any housing development project. Comprehensive environmental impact studies can be incredibly detailed, scientifically rigorous, and, as a result, very time-consuming and expensive, often requiring the engagement of specialized environmental consultants and engineers. Navigating the intricate rules and permitting requirements related to wetlands protection, endangered species habitats, stormwater management systems, and potential site remediation for contamination can add many months, sometimes even years, and substantial six-figure expenses to overall project timelines. While undeniably necessary for responsible development, the sheer volume, detail, and intricacy of these environmental mandates contribute significantly to the overall regulatory burden faced by home builders. So, modern home builders aren't just managing the physical act of construction, pouring concrete, framing walls, and installing systems. They are, to a very large extent, managing a veritable mountain of paperwork, a confusing labyrinth of widely varying rules and codes, and a grueling gauntlet of multiple review processes across different agencies. This often necessitates hiring entire teams of specialized experts simply to navigate the bureaucracy, lawyers specializing in land use and zoning law, consultants to handle environmental compliance and permitting, and professional expediters whose sole job is to shepherd applications through the Byzantine corridors of City Hall. These are all highly skilled professionals, and their essential services do not come cheap. All these considerable ancillary costs, born directly out of the sheer regulatory complexity, add significantly to a project's overhead budget. This isn't primarily about builders trying to cut corners on safety standards or environmental protection. It's fundamentally about the systemic inefficiency, fragmentation, and often glacial pace of the regulatory system itself, which ultimately and inevitably inflates the final cost of every single new home built. Each individual regulation, each distinct permitting step, or each specific code requirement, when viewed in complete isolation, might seem perfectly reasonable, perhaps even minor. A small application fee here, a seemingly minor delay of a few weeks there, a particular building material specification that adds a little to the cost. These can all be justified on their own merits. But when you begin to pile all of them up, and there can be dozens, sometimes hundreds of them, for a single project, the cumulative effect becomes absolutely staggering. It's the classic death by 1,000 cuts scenario, where no single wound is fatal, but the collective impact is overwhelmingly burdensome. The sheer volume of rules to comply with, the often overlapping and sometimes conflicting jurisdictions of different agencies, the enormous amount of time spent waiting for approvals, revising plans, and resubmitting paperwork, it all congeals into a massive, costly impediment to building. This isn't just a minor annoyance for developers, it's a fundamental and significant driver of high construction costs, acting like a heavy anchor dragging down the potential supply of new homes. So, how much does all this pervasive red tape, this intricate web of rules and procedures, actually add to the final price of a new home? Well, you might want to sit down for this. Numerous studies conducted by housing economists and industry groups have found that government regulations at all levels, federal, state, and local, can account for a truly shocking percentage of the final cost of a new home. In some markets, particularly those in high-demand areas with notoriously complex and lengthy approval processes, these regulations can add up to an astonishing 25%, 30%, or even more to the price tag of a new single-family home. Just pause and think about that for a moment. Nearly a third of what a family might pay for a brand new house could be going towards navigating the bureaucratic maze and covering compliance costs, rather than towards the actual bricks, mortar, lumber, or the labor of the skilled tradespeople who build it. That's an incredibly hefty premium to pay for paperwork and procedural hurdles. It's crucial to understand that these compliance costs go far, far beyond just the direct fees that builders pay to various government agencies for things like permits, plan checks, and inspections. They encompass the significant expense of hiring specialized external consultants, urban planners, traffic engineers, environmental scientists, as well as lawyers and architects whose expertise is needed simply to interpret and navigate the complex and ever-changing web of rules. They also include the very substantial financial burden of project delays, the carrying costs on land, like property taxes and loan interest, and project financing that continue to accumulate while developers are waiting months or even years for necessary approvals. Furthermore, they include the often unforeseen costs of extensive redesigns that may be forced upon projects due to subjective review processes or sudden changes in code interpretations. And finally, they include the significant opportunity cost of capital that remains tied up in stalled or delayed projects, money that could otherwise be invested in starting new developments. It's a multifaceted financial burden that, by necessity, ultimately gets passed on to the end consumer in the form of higher home prices or rents. Now, to be perfectly clear and fair, many, if not most, regulations serve vital and laudable public purposes. They are designed to protect public safety, ensure the structural integrity and longevity of buildings, and safeguard our precious environment for future generations. These are critically important goals that we all generally support and benefit from. The central issue, therefore, isn't typically the existence of regulation itself, but rather the sheer cumulative volume, the often unnecessary complexity, the frequent lack of coordination between different agencies, and the often glacial pace of the decision-making processes. This bureaucratic tangle doesn't just frustrate the builders who are trying to create housing, it actively discourages the construction of more affordable housing options. When the cost and time involved in compliance become excessively burdensome, it makes it significantly harder and riskier to build anything at all, especially the entry-level homes and missing middle housing types that our communities so desperately need. The system in many ways is inadvertently working against its own potential to foster a healthy and affordable housing market. So, we've talked materials, labor, land, and the red tape. But let's not forget the actual money side of building. It's a huge piece of this puzzle, a critical factor that many people overlook. You see, builders, even the big ones, rarely fund massive construction projects entirely out of their own pockets. That's just not how this game typically works. Instead, they heavily rely on something called construction loans. These specialized loans are the financial lifeblood, the essential fuel that allows them to acquire the land, purchase all those increasingly expensive materials we discussed, and pay their skilled labor force throughout the long months, sometimes years, it takes to actually erect a building. This flow of capital is absolutely fundamental. Now think about what happens when the cost of borrowing that essential money suddenly skyrockets. That's exactly where we find ourselves today. With interest rates climbing dramatically, the cost of financing for these crucial construction loans has, in many cases, doubled or even tripled compared to just a few short years ago. Imagine you're trying to run a marathon, and someone just strapped an extra 50 pounds to your back. That's the kind of pressure rising interest rates put on builders. Each percentage point increase means substantially higher monthly payments on their loans, payments that relentlessly accumulate throughout the entire construction phase, long before any homes are sold and revenue starts coming in. This dramatic surge in financing costs has a profound, chilling ripple effect on project viability. Builders are business people. They need to make a profit to stay afloat and continue building. When their borrowing costs explode, they're faced with some very tough choices. They might have to try and pass those significantly higher financing costs onto the eventual home buyers, which, you guessed it, makes new homes even more eye-wateringly expensive. Alternatively, many builders might decide to pivot away from constructing more affordable entry-level homes where profit margins are already razor-thin. Instead, they may focus exclusively on high-end luxury properties where larger profit margins can better absorb these inflated financing expenses. And it's not just the builders feeling the squeeze. The banks and lenders themselves become far more cautious in this kind of high-interest rate, uncertain economic environment. Lending standards often tighten up considerably. This means it becomes much more difficult for builders, especially smaller independent firms, to even secure the loans they need in the first place. Banks might demand higher equity contributions from the developers, ask for more collateral, or simply become more conservative in their overall lending decisions. This creates yet another formidable layer of difficulty, another hurdle to overcome, effectively chilling new development. This financial caution, born from economic uncertainty, significantly slows down the entire pipeline of new housing projects, from initial conception to breaking ground. Beyond rising borrowing costs, general inflation is wreaking havoc on construction budgets. It's not just about lumber and concrete. Diesel fuel, insurance premiums, and even administrative supplies are all getting pricier. Builders try to absorb these costs, but there's a limit before it threatens their financial viability. Eventually, these rising costs are reflected in the final price of homes, pushing the dream of homeownership further out of reach. Smaller building companies struggle to stay afloat in this environment. High and volatile inflation creates uncertainty, which is poison for long-term construction projects. Developers can't accurately budget for projects that won't be finished for another 18 months. Providing firm price quotes to home buyers becomes risky, and locking in reliable bids from subcontractors is a challenge. This uncertainty makes developers hesitant to take on new projects, especially those aimed at the affordable housing market. Higher financing costs and relentless inflation mean fewer new housing projects break ground. This exacerbates the housing shortage, pushing prices higher and making homeownership an increasingly distant prospect. The combination of these factors creates a vicious cycle, making it harder for builders to operate and for families to afford homes. The dream of a new home is slipping away for too many hardworking American families. We've dissected the rising costs of building a home in America. Now let's talk solutions. Tackling zoning and regulations is crucial. In many places, it's practically illegal to build affordable housing where people want to live. We need to rethink land management. Single-family-only zones limit density and drive up land costs. Allowing for more housing types can provide more homes at accessible prices. Upzoning, especially in areas with good public transit and job centers, makes sense. Eliminating parking minimums for new developments can reduce costs. Streamlining the permitting process is essential. Fast-track approvals for affordable projects and better technology for managing applications can help. The goal is to make the process faster, more predictable, and less expensive. Reducing these timelines means reducing costs. These reforms can create powerful incentives for builders to construct more housing. It's about evolving neighborhoods to accommodate more people, not destroying them. We need to address the shortage of skilled workers in construction. Investing in vocational training, apprenticeships, and technical education is key. We must change the perception that trades are less valuable than a college degree. These are well-paying, essential jobs. Robust partnerships between the construction industry, educational institutions, and government are needed. Companies can be incentivized to create apprenticeship programs. Reaching out to underrepresented groups can broaden the talent pool. Embracing innovation in construction methods is also crucial. Prefabricated and modular construction can reduce waste, shorten timelines, and lower costs. Building in a factory setting allows for greater precision and quality control. Off-site construction methods can significantly compress project timelines. These methods represent an opportunity to build more homes quickly and affordably. Supporting the growth of these techniques is essential. Building smarter, not just harder, is the way forward. Cutting-edge technologies like 3D printed housing offer exciting potential. Reduced construction times, less material waste, and design flexibility are key benefits. Investing in research and pilot projects is a smart, long-term investment. Innovation in building materials and supply chains is also critical. We need sustainable, cost-effective materials and resilient supply chains. The housing crisis requires a comprehensive, multi-pronged approach. Collaboration between government, private sector, nonprofits, and community groups is essential. Bold action and sustained commitment are needed. The dream of affordable homeownership is slipping away for too many. Reversing this trend requires political courage and significant investment. Ensuring access to safe, affordable housing must be a national priority. The time for incremental tweaks is over. Transformative change is needed. We must act now to build a more equitable and prosperous future. Building a home in America today is like an expensive, high-stakes obstacle course. Material prices are sky-high, skilled workers are scarce, and land is precious. Bureaucracy and red tape add to the challenges. This isn't a simple fix. It's a system-wide traffic jam. The dream of homeownership is fading for many. Young families, essential workers, and everyday people are being priced out. The current trajectory will reshape our society in ways we can't afford. We need real, substantial, gutsy change. Implementing smarter zoning laws, faster permitting processes, and investing in the workforce are key. These changes require courage from policymakers and innovation from the construction industry. A coordinated effort is essential. The American housing market is fundamentally challenged. Bold creativity, unwavering courage, and crucial coordination are needed. What do you think? Can we head towards a better housing future? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights.